What if I told you there's a sound, just one, that could awaken the deepest reserves of your energy in less than a minute? Not in years of training, not through complicated rituals, but in exactly 55 seconds. For thousands of years, this sound was passed in whispers through temple walls, hidden from the masses, and buried under layers of forgotten history. It's tied to Thoth, the keeper of wisdom in ancient Egypt, and to a science of vibration so precise it could shift not only the body, but the very fabric of reality. Those who once knew it guarded it fiercely, not because it harmed, but because it liberated. And liberation has always been dangerous to those who wish to control. Today, we'll uncover its name, trace its path through the centuries, explore how it works, and most importantly, show you exactly how to use it, so you can feel its power for yourself before this day is over. Imagine walking into the heart of an ancient temple, the air heavy with the scent of incense, the sandstone walls carved with symbols that have watched over humanity for thousands of years. Your footsteps echo, not in silence, but in a subtle hum, almost as if the stone itself remembers the chants that once filled these halls. For the high priests of ancient Egypt, sound was not a metaphor for creation. It was creation. They believed the universe itself began not with light, but with vibration, an initial frequency that shaped the chaos into the living world. And so, they guarded sound as a sacred technology, one that could build, heal, and awaken. In the temple of Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess of power and protection, rituals were performed in chambers designed to amplify the human voice until it became something more than human. The priests called it remembering, not learning something new, but returning to a truth you had always carried inside you. These chants were not idle prayers. They were calculated sequences of tones and syllables, chosen to ripple through water, bone, and even the air itself. The Egyptians were not alone in this. In Sumer, the world's first cities rose alongside temples where the names of gods were sung in resonant syllables, meant to summon prosperity and protection. In ancient India, the Vedic tradition held that Om was the primordial sound, the frequency of existence itself, and that chanting it aligned the soul with the heartbeat of the universe. And in Greece, Pythagoras spoke of the music of the spheres, teaching that the movement of celestial bodies created a silent symphony that shaped both matter and mind. Across these civilizations, the belief was the same. Sound wasn't just heard, it was felt, and its effects could be measured in the physical world. It could alter the crystalline structure of water, shift the balance of the body, and transform the atmosphere of a room. Modern science, almost reluctantly, has begun to confirm what these ancient cultures already knew. Researchers have measured unique resonances inside the chambers of the Great Pyramid of Giza, suggesting they were engineered to enhance and sustain specific frequencies. Standing in those rooms, a simple human voice could be amplified into something that vibrated not just through the ear, but through the bones and the mind. And so the knowledge endured, passed in whispers, hidden in symbols, scattered across mythologies. It waited. It waited for an age when humanity would once again be ready to use sound, not as entertainment, not as noise, but as the bridge between what we see and what we cannot see. That age, it seems, is beginning to return. And the question is no longer whether these secrets shaped the world, it's whether we are ready to let them shape us. Long before the word science meant laboratories and white coats, there were philosophers who studied the universe as a living, breathing organism. Among them were the hermetic masters keepers of a philosophy that claimed one simple truth. Everything vibrates, not just sound, not just light, every rock, every star. Every thought is a ripple in an endless ocean of movement. In the hermetic view, vibration isn't simply a property of the world, it's the language of creation itself. And sound, as the most tangible form of vibration, is the first tool consciousness uses to shape matter. When the frequency is pure, it can do what nothing else can: dissolve the patterns of fear, scarcity, and doubt that grip the human mind. It can replace them with something new: clarity, strength, and a sense of connection that feels almost otherworldly. But there's a reason these sounds weren't sung openly in the streets. Power, in the wrong hands, doesn't just fade, it fractures. A frequency that can heal can also destabilize. In the old texts, there are quiet warnings about sound being used to unmake, as easily as it makes, to shatter the delicate harmony between mind and body. The hermetic masters understood this all too well. They saw what happened when individuals became truly free, when no priest, no ruler, no system could dictate the shape of their inner world. And they also saw how such freedom threatened the structures that had ruled for centuries. So, the most potent tones, the ones that could dismantle not just personal illusions, but entire societal frameworks, were hidden away. Sometimes in symbols, sometimes in allegories, sometimes simply by never speaking them beyond the inner circles. It's tempting to feel frustrated at this secrecy. But the Hermetics weren't just gatekeepers, they were guardians. They knew that consciousness is like fire. It can warm and illuminate, or it can consume. The sounds they preserved were like sparks from the divine forge. If you were ready, they could ignite your spirit. If you weren't, they could burn you from the inside out. And so the question isn't just what this sound is. The real question, the one the Hermetics would have asked you, is, are you ready for what it will change in you? If you strip away the chants, the robes, the incense, and the ceremony, what you're left with is a simple truth: when a person knows how to align their own energy, they no longer need anyone else to do it for them. And that, throughout history, has always been dangerous, not to the individual, but to those who profit from their dependence. The sound we're talking about wasn't forbidden because it harmed people. It was forbidden because it freed them. The moment someone learns to use it correctly, they stop looking for intermediaries. No priest, no healer, no authority can stand between them and their own source of power. For the ruling systems, that's a nightmare. Fear is easy to control. Freedom is not. Over time, the connection between words and energy was deliberately broken. Rituals became hollow. Sacred phrases were repeated without the presence that gave them life. The frequency was lost in translation, literally. Language shifted, cultures collided, and the original resonance was buried beneath layers of noise. The result? Entire societies fell into passivity, accepting that spiritual nourishment had to come from outside themselves. They were told to follow, to obey, to wait for salvation rather than realizing they could create it in an instant. But here's the part they didn't count on. A sound like this never truly disappears. You can't erase something woven into the very fabric of human consciousness. It sleeps, it waits, it hums quietly in the background of your being until something, curiosity, desperation, courage, stirs it awake again. And when it does, the same systems that tried to bury it will have no power over you. Because once you remember, you can't be made to forget. Once you hear it, not just with your ears, but with your whole body, you'll know it's been yours all along. There's a moment in every true journey when the search ends, not because the road has run out, but because you finally realize what you've been chasing has been with you the entire time. That's what happens here. After all the mystery, all the fragments of history and guarded whispers, the sound is revealed. I am. At first glance, it might seem almost too simple. Just two small words. We use them every day without thinking. I am tired. I am happy. I am here. But the I am of Thoth's tradition is not about describing a state or labeling yourself. It is not an identity in the personal sense. It's the original frequency of being, the note struck before thought, before name, before separation. In the temples of ancient Egypt, this sound was never spoken casually. It was chanted with full presence, sometimes for only a handful of breaths, sometimes for days at a time. The initiates believed that I am was the vibrational code that reconnected the human field directly to the source, the unbroken current that flows through all life. When voiced correctly, I am doesn't just pass through the lips. It vibrates through the chest, spine, and skull. It ripples outward into the space around you, altering the subtle architecture of your energy field. Ancient accounts speak of this chant opening the Golden Gate within the self, a doorway where divine awareness and human form meet without distortion. This is why Thoth called it dangerous. Not because it could harm, but because once you truly speak it, you realize you've never been separate from the power you sought. It's a key, and once you turn it, the lock it opens is you. When you speak I am with your whole presence, something begins to shift, not in a vague, poetic sense, but in a way that is both visceral and measurable. It is as if the sound reaches into the architecture of your being and begins to rearrange it from the inside out. Ancient teachers described it as rethreading the loom of the soul, pulling the strands of your energy back into their original alignment. Modern science is only beginning to glimpse what these mystics already knew. The sustained vibration of a consciously spoken I am influences the electromagnetic field of the heart, that subtle yet powerful rhythm that extends several feet beyond your body. Heart coherence follows, sending signals that regulate cellular communication and even the expression of certain healing genes. It's a cascade effect. Your cells respond, tissues harmonize, the nervous system settles, and the mind becomes a clear, quiet lake. But this is not just about repeating a phrase. You can't half mean it and expect the same transformation. The power of I am comes from the union of three forces: your intention, the physical vibration of the sound, and the felt sensation in your body as you speak it. Miss any one of these, and it becomes just words. When all three lock into place, you become both the speaker and the space into which the words dissolve. And in that moment, the sound becomes a bridge. On one side stands the fractured self, shaped by labels, fears, and the noise of the world. On the other side is the origin point, the pure presence you were before the world told you who to be. I am is how you cross. 55 seconds. It's not an arbitrary number pulled from thin air. It's the minimum threshold your body needs to shift from surface-level thinking into deep vibrational alignment. For the first few seconds, the mind resists. It chatters, it questions, but somewhere past the halfway mark, something changes. Your breath and heartbeat begin to synchronize, and your nervous system slips into what scientists call coherence, a balanced rhythm, linking the heart, brain, and body into one harmonious flow. The HeartMath Institute has been studying this phenomenon for decades. Their research shows that when the heart enters coherence, it sends a steady, rhythmic signal to the brain, influencing mental clarity, emotional stability, and even immune function. This is not mystical speculation, it's measurable. Heart rate variability charts flatten into smooth waves. Stress chemistry decreases. Serotonin and dopamine rise. A key player in this shift is the vagus nerve, a wandering superhighway of communication between the brain and the body. The deep, resonant vibration of the I am chant stimulates this nerve, triggering a rest and regenerate state that counteracts the constant fight or flight mode so many of us live in. The body responds with a flood of positive neurochemicals, signaling safety and opening the door to deeper states of awareness. As the seconds build, brainwave activity often transitions toward gamma waves, high-frequency patterns associated with expanded perception, compassion, and insight. These are the same brain states measured in long-term meditators and seasoned monks. In that state, time can feel slower, colors sharper, and intuition louder. The technique isn't just about making a sound, it's about full-body resonance. You allow the vibration to fill your chest, ripple through your bones, and hum in your skull. You're not speaking "I am" just from your throat. You're letting it radiate from every cell. The sound becomes a signal, and your body becomes the transmitter. And in just 55 seconds, you're no longer trying to raise your vibration, you're living it. When spoken with full presence, "I am" is not just an inward prayer, it becomes an outward force. The vibration doesn't end at the edges of your skin, it radiates, touching the subtle fields around you, shifting the tone of the space you inhabit. Plants seem calmer, conversations soften. Even strangers feel a quiet pull toward you without knowing why. The ancient teachers knew this wasn't coincidence, it was the law of resonance at work. And when enough individuals hold that vibration, something bigger happens. The collective field begins to reorganize. Fear-based systems, those built on control, scarcity, and obedience, cannot thrive in a high-coherence environment. Their patterns dissolve because the frequency they depend on no longer exists. This is why the sound was hidden for so long. It wasn't dangerous because it harmed, it was dangerous because it freed. The phrase, "those who vibrate do not beg, they manifest," is more than poetic. It's a declaration of sovereignty. When you stand in your true frequency, you stop asking for permission to live, to be whole, to create. You simply embody it, and reality arranges itself accordingly. This is the vibrational code's most radical act, not rebellion through conflict, but transformation through alignment. Every time you chant "I am" with clear intent, you're not only realigning your own energy, you're adding to a growing, invisible network of coherence that spans across people, places, and nations. It's not a theory, it's a quiet revolution, and it begins in your chest. Before you even speak the words, the preparation begins. This isn't just about making a sound. It's about creating the conditions where that sound can work at its fullest. Find a quiet space where you won't be interrupted. Sit or stand with your spine straight but relaxed, letting your shoulders drop away from your ears. This alignment opens the energy channels in your body, allowing the vibration to travel freely. Close your eyes and take 3 deep, deliberate breaths. Each inhale draws in clean energy. Each exhale clears the mental clutter. Imagine those breaths sweeping through your mind, your heart, and even the space around you, as if you're clearing a sacred room for something powerful to enter. Place one or both hands gently over the center of your chest. This isn't symbolic, it physically connects you to the electromagnetic field of your heart, amplifying the resonance. When you begin, let the sound "I am" rise from deep within your chest, not just from your throat. You want to feel the vibration spread into your ribs, your shoulders, even the bones of your face. The cycle is simple. Each repetition lasts 5 seconds, from the full-bodied inhale to the final vibration fading into silence. You repeat this 11 times, bringing the total to the magic number 55 seconds. As you chant, keep your attention anchored in the present moment. Don't force the feeling. Allow it to emerge naturally with the sound. When the last cycle ends, resist the urge to rush away. Sit in complete stillness for several seconds. Feel how the energy continues to move, even in silence. This is where the deepest shifts happen. Your field is reorganizing, your nervous system is resetting, and your intention is sealing into place. If you practice daily, this becomes more than a technique. It becomes a living connection to the same vibrational current the ancients guarded and passed down through whispers, temples, and hidden scrolls. And now, it's alive in you. When your personal energy shifts, the world around you responds in kind. The people you meet, the situations you attract, even the challenges you face, everything begins to reshape itself to match the new frequency you carry. This is the quiet power of I Aim. It doesn't just transform you, it transforms the reality you move through. So here's my invitation. Practice this, and then share what you experience. Write it down, speak it aloud, tell someone you trust. And if you feel called, leave a simple comment below. I am the living memory. Let it be both a personal declaration and a thread that ties you to others walking the same path. We are not just remembering, we are becoming. And in that becoming, we are part of something far greater than ourselves. In the next video, we'll go deeper into the vibrational gateways, how to open them, and what awaits on the other side. Until then, carry this sound within you and watch how your life begins to answer back.